Our story often begins with a question, a simple, profound question. What if our home could no longer sustain us? What if the air grew thin, the waters turned bitter, the once green lands faded to brown? This was no distant question. Mid-21st century it became unavoidable. We had pushed our world to its limits. It began to push back. Debate was over. Action had come. A choice had to be made. Not greed, but survival. We looked up to the endless sea of stars. So we searched, not as dreamers but as architects. We needed a home. Rain could fall, seeds could sprout, children could breathe without a filter. The search was long and arduous. Then, we found it. A faint glimmer, a pale blue dot. Kepler 186f, a world of possibility. The decision was made. We would send a mission, not a small crew, a colony, a seed of humanity. 6,000 souls, scientists, engineers, doctors, farmers, artists, teachers, the best of us. The vessel that would carry them was not just a machine of metal and wires, it was a world unto itself. A self-contained biosphere designed for a journey that would span generations. They called it the Odyssey, the culmination of all our knowledge. A marvel of engineering built by the hands of every nation on Earth. Its vast frame stretched for kilometers, a gleaming spindle against the black. Inside it was not a cramped capsule. It was a sprawling habitat, parks with real grass and trees, soaring atriums that mimicked the sky, residential sectors that felt like small, quiet towns. It had to be more than a ship. For a century it would be home. The day of departure, profound sadness and incredible pride. The world watched, united. 6,000 people in simple blue uniforms walked the long gantry. Families at thick plasteel viewports pressed their hands. Tears were shed, promises were made. A silent understanding passed between those leaving and those staying. Those aboard the Odyssey were not just passengers, they were messengers, carrying memories, carrying music, carrying art, carrying the collective wisdom of a planet. The journey through interstellar space was a long and silent one, a century of travel. For the first generation of colonists, the ship was the only world they would ever truly know. The mission was designed for this. A large portion of the crew was placed in cryogenic stasis, a long, dreamless sleep to conserve resources and preserve their skills for the arrival. But not everyone slept. A dedicated crew of several hundred remained awake, in rotating shifts, to pilot the ship, maintain its complex systems, guide it through the treacherous emptiness of the void. They were the keepers of the flame, the guardians of the sleeping city hurtling through the dark. Their lives were a structured routine, a careful dance of duty and necessity. They monitored the fusion core that powered their world, tended the hydroponic farms that fed them, maintained the complex life support systems that gave them air and water. They were the ghost crew of the Odyssey, living out their entire lives on a vessel that was more home than vehicle. They raised families, they celebrated births, they mourned losses. They told their children stories of Earth, a mythical place with an open sky and endless oceans, a world they had only seen in videos and simulations. The ship was their reality, Earth was their legend, hope was their most precious resource. It was cultivated as carefully as the food in the agricultural domes. They had to be more than a crew, they had to be a community. After a century of silent travel, the moment finally came. The ship's powerful engines, dormant for so long, reawakened with a deep hum that vibrated through every deck. The Odyssey began its deceleration burn, a long and careful process of slowing down from its near-light-speed journey. For the descendants of the original crew and for those being gently awakened from their long cryo-sleep, it was a time of electric anticipation. The star, Kepler 186, grew from a bright point of light into a brilliant reddish-orange sun in the forward viewports. And there, orbiting this new sun, was their destination, their new home. Kepler 186f, no longer a fuzzy image on a screen but a real, tangible world. As the Odyssey settled into a stable orbit, the planet filled their view. It was beautiful, a breathtaking mosaic of deep blue oceans, swirling white clouds and continents of a strange rust-red color. The vegetation, as their long-range scans had predicted, was not green like Earth's. Bathed in the redder light of its star, the plant life had evolved to absorb different wavelengths, giving the landscapes a palette of reds, oranges, and deep purples. It was alien yet hauntingly familiar. It had mountains, rivers, and coastlines. It had weather. It was a living, breathing world, waiting for them. The 6,000 colonists, now all awake and restored, gathered at the viewports, their faces pressed against the glass in silent awe. The first phase of arrival was a meticulous and cautious one. The day of the first landing was, honestly, a moment etched into the memory of every colonist. The Pioneer detached from the belly of the Odyssey and began its descent. It wasn't a small, cramped module, it was a large shuttle carrying the first 100 people, and the essential equipment to establish a base camp. The entire population watched on screens. The Pioneer pierced thin, pinkish clouds and glided down toward a carefully selected landing site, a large, flat plain, the mouth of a great river, beside a vast, purple forest. The landing was perfect, a gentle touchdown on alien soil. The ramp lowered. For the first time, the air of Kepler 186f flooded a human-made vessel. It smelled sweet, earthy, with a strange, spicy scent they couldn't place. Eris Thorne stepped out. The lead botanist followed. The chief engineer followed. A young child, chosen by lottery, stepped out to represent the future. They stood for a moment just taking in the scene. The sky was a soft shade of salmon. Kepler 186 hung as a large, gentle orange orb in the sky. The ground beneath their feet was a fine reddish dust. Eris knelt down and scooped a handful of soil. She let it run through her fingers. "We are home," she said, broadcast back to the Odyssey, and recorded for the annals of their new history. The first steps were tentative, almost reverent. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth's, a difference they could feel in their bones. Their boots left the first human footprints on this new world. There was no fanfare, no flag planting in the style of old conquests. Instead, they stood together in a circle, a moment of silent reflection. A communal promise to be worthy stewards of this new Eden. For the 100 years it took to cross the void, life on the Odyssey was, a carefully orchestrated ballet of survival and society. The ship was not just a transport, it was a microcosm of civilization, designed to nurture the human spirit as much as the human body. Daily life was structured around work, education, and community. The awake crew and their families lived in residential modules designed to feel spacious and open. Walls displaying Earth's landscapes, forests, beaches, mountains, families watching the displays, a vital psychological link to their heritage. Education was the cornerstone of their society. Children learned the history of Earth, the science of their journey, and the skills they'd need on Kepler 186f, hydroponic gardens as classrooms, engine rooms as classrooms, the bridge as classroom. Every part of the ship was a learning environment. They grew up with a profound sense of purpose, knowing they'd build the new world. Their playground was a low-gravity gymnasium where they could leap and float. Community was forged in the shared spaces of the ship. The central atrium, with its soaring ceiling and park-like atmosphere, was the heart of the Odyssey. Here, people gathered to eat, to talk, to play music, and to simply be together. They celebrated holidays, both old ones from Earth and new ones they created to mark their journey. Crossing Day, Starfall. These traditions created a shared culture, a unique identity as Starborn, a people of the ship. They were a single, unified tribe, bound by their shared destiny and their isolation in the vastness of space. Once on the surface of Kepler 186f, the colonists began the monumental task of building a home. The initial settlement of First Landing quickly grew from temporary shelters into a burgeoning town. Using advanced 3D printers, the reddish soil mixed with a binding polymer, they constructed permanent buildings. The architecture was unique, with curved walls and domed roofs designed to withstand the planet's strong seasonal winds. The town was laid out in a circular pattern with a central plaza that mirrored the communal atrium of the Odyssey, a familiar design to make the alien world feel more like home. Farming was the highest priority. While the ship's hydroponic systems provided food initially, self-sufficiency was the ultimate goal. Botanists worked tirelessly in sealed biodomes to adapt Earth crops to the new soil and the redder light of the Kepler 186 star. They crossbred earthly wheat with a hardy local grass, creating a new grain that thrived in the alien environment. They discovered which of the local fruits were edible, strange, jewel-toned fruits that tasted like a mix of terrestrial flavors. Soon, the first open-air fields were planted, neat rows of earth green and alien purple, a living symbol of two worlds coming together. The spirit of teamwork that was forged in the emptiness of space became the bedrock of their new society. There was no currency, no concept of wealth in the old Earth sense. Everyone contributed and everyone received what they needed. Engineers who designed the water purification systems worked alongside artists who painted murals on the new buildings. Doctors who studied the effects of the new environment on human health collaborated with zoologists cataloging the planet's fascinating creatures. Every job was essential, every person valued for their contribution to the whole. As the settlement grew, so did their exploration of the new world. Building a new world was not a simple task. It was fraught with challenges that tested the colonists' ingenuity and resolve at every turn. The planet, while life-giving, was not always gentle. The weather was one of their first great adversaries. The seasons were more extreme than Earth's, with a long, harsh winter where temperatures plummeted and a stormy season that brought torrential rains and hurricane-force winds. The colonists had to learn the planet's rhythms, reinforcing their structures and developing new agricultural techniques like underground greenhouses to protect their food supply during the harshest months. Every storm they weathered made them stronger and smarter. The local biology also presented unforeseen difficulties. While no large predators threatened the settlement, smaller life forms posed a risk. A native microbe, harmless to the local fauna, caused a severe allergic reaction in some of the colonists, a condition they called the red dust fever. Their medical teams had to work around the clock, analyzing the microbe and developing an effective treatment from a combination of earth medicine and compounds extracted from local plants. This challenge reinforced a critical lesson. They had to study and understand this new ecosystem with profound respect, for their survival depended on living in harmony with it, not conquering it. Perhaps the greatest challenge was a psychological one. As the initial excitement of arrival faded, a deep sense of loss settled over some of the colonists. They missed the simple things about Earth, the smell of a pine forest, the taste of a real ocean, the sight of a blue sky. They were 6,000 people, the last remnants of their home separated by an impassable ocean of space. To combat this deep-seated homesickness, they established the Archives, a cultural center where they could experience immersive virtual reality simulations of Earth. They could walk through Paris, hike the Himalayas, or listen to an orchestra play. It was a way to touch their past without losing sight of their future. Despite these struggles, their hope never wavered. For every challenge they found a solution, and every solution brought them closer together.